Okay, let's say you're a puppeteer who really wants to be involved with a puppetry guild, but there is no puppetry guild in the area where you live. What do you do? Well, if you're puppeteer Katy Williams, you start one. Stay tuned as I talk to Katy Williams about why and how she founded the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild on this episode of Under the Puppet.
You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. Welcome to the show that talks to puppeteers about the art and business of puppetry. My name is Grandpa Choco, and this is Under the Puppet. Welcome to Under the Puppet. My guest for this episode is puppeteer Katy Williams. As you'll hear, Katy has an incredible passion for puppetry, and this passion led her to found and be the first president of the new Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild in the Denver, Colorado area. She has some great advice for those puppeteers who are looking to do the same. Here now is my interview with Katy Williams. Katy Williams, welcome to Under the Puppet.
Hello. Hi, Grant.
I'm so excited to have you here today, and we are going to be talking about a lot of stuff. But what I wanted to start with is that you have a tremendous background in theater and live performing. When did that passion hit you?
When I was very young, I feel like most thespians feel it very young. But, I got really into theater in high school, I think as most of us do. And I studied theater all throughout college. And kind of starting in high school and then throughout college, I started to dive more into the puppet part. I always loved being an actor, and then I started to get more into tech theater, and then puppetry kind of mixed both of those things perfectly together for me. So, yeah, I've been doing it pretty much my whole life, honestly.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, you're very well versed in many of the behind-the-scenes areas of theater, including set design and building and prop making and makeup. How has working in these various areas helped your puppetry?
Oh, man. Well, puppetry, of course, is a little bit of everything. I tell people all the time, I'm so happy that I had to learn all the bajillion skills you need in tech theater, because every one of those skills has a little bit of something when I'm building a puppet. So my university was really great too. I went to the University of Denver, and it is not a conservatory, which meant that everybody, no matter what your discipline was, had to do a little bit of everything, which I really appreciated. And I really started to connect with working in set and working in shop and paint and all these types of things. And from there, I just discovered that I could use my creativity to build things in a way I never knew before. And I had a lot of background with sewing and painting, because my mom is also an artist. And so I had this just like lovely, wonderful background of creativity and art that was cultivated at the University of Denver. And yeah, these tech skills have totally played into puppetry. I got really into prosthetics in college. And so I learned how to do molds, which of course that has been helping me with puppetry as well. And just a lot of collaboration too. I think that DU is really great about teaching you how to be a collaborative artist, and knowing that no matter what you do in theater, you will be relevant and available to everybody, and you can always be part of the team. And so I really gained a lot of awesome skills, both soft skills and hard skills going there in theater world.
Now, I know you started designing and fabricating puppets in 2013 for your senior thesis, but you mentioned that you got into it a little bit before. It was sort of Avenue Q that got you into puppetry, right?
Yeah. I was definitely. I feel like there's kind of two paths that puppeteers are on, and one path is the person who, watched the Muppets when they were younger, and they have been obsessed with Henson ever since a super young age. And then the other path are the people who were probably theater practitioners and fell into puppetry. And I definitely fall on the other path, on this latter side. So, it all just sort of kind of happened in school. And Avenue Q was the first quote unquote puppet show I saw or was involved in. But really, I had been doing puppetry pretty much my whole life, just kids and being an imaginative child and always making things come to life. And I thought that I did it the same amount as everybody else, but now in my adult years, I'm realizing that I did it a lot more than other kids. So I think we always had a little bit of that going on. But yeah, in high school, I got to be in like a showcase thing, and one of the numbers we did was BA in English, and that kind of just really started to tickle my puppet bone a little bit.
Awesome. In your opinion, what is it about puppets in a live theater space that makes them so magical?
Ooh. Oh, I have so many thoughts about this. Um, I think that there is something so visceral in seeing something come to life before your eyes. I was just kind of having this conversation with somebody the other day of like you see something in a movie and I think that you can be taken out of the movie quickly because I don't know, you could look at your phone or you can start to look at other things around you or you can really think about the fact that you're watching a film and the film could stop at any time. But with live theater, I mean, it can't stop and the show must go on and all of that kind of stuff. But I think that when you have puppetry in it, it really just has this ability to take your breath away because you're seeing something living and breathing right in front of you that you never thought could happen. And I think that a lot of times audiences are willing to suspend that disbelief a little bit easier in theater as well. So those of us who do puppetry in theater, I think, can get away with a lot more minimalistic things or different things or unique things because that audience is willing to kind of go there with us. And so, yeah, I just think it just has this wonderful magical space that the theater really allows us to practice this craft.
Well, and we spoke just a few seconds ago about all your different interests in the different areas, behind the scenes of theater as well as performing. But you also have explored a lot of different styles of puppetry, including shadow
Mm-hmm.
and cranky and hand puppets. Do you enjoy seeking out these different styles and trying your hand at it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like looking back, I would have no idea that I would know these many styles or enjoy these many styles. But yeah, so like my senior thesis in college was it. I also did, I think, three styles of puppetry in that one just because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. But yeah, every time I find something new and it speaks to me, I just want to try it and see. And I've been really nervous to try new things. Like I had seen Crankies a long time ago, but I don't know, I had never seen it in Colorado and I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. And then one day I just decided to make one and found a tutorial online and it suddenly became this wonderful, amazing thing. And now everybody in Colorado wants more Crankies. It's great. But, yeah, I love experimenting with all the different styles. I think some of my favorites are definitely shadow puppetry and like large scale, like creature puppetry, where you're bringing things to life, sort of Boonraku style. Yeah, so those are my two favorite right now, but I'm excited to try everything I possibly can.
Well, I met you last year at the National Festival in Minnesota. How long have you been sort of involved with Puppeteers of America and going to festivals and things?
So in 2015, that was my first festival, the Yukon Festival, and I actually had never even heard of Puppeteers of America. And then I was doing an internship in Maine, and somebody in Maine told me about it, and they said that there were scholarships available because I was super poor because I was doing an internship. And I ended up getting a scholarship based on the work I had done with my senior thesis with my Pegasus show. And that really was the catalyst for me to go. And I'm so happy that that was my first festival. I don't know if you were at that one or not, but that Yukon Festival was amazing, I thought. I feel so spoiled that that was my first one because I want it to be at Yukon every year now. But so I've been doing stuff with Puppeteers of America since 2015, because I'm pretty sure I became a member that same year. So yeah, so and then I've been trying to go to the festivals every 2 years just because I love it and I love getting to see all my puppet friends and I always learn so much at them.
Yeah. Well, you have been an amazing champion of puppetry in Colorado and the Rocky Mountain area.
Oh,
And this includes even presenting the first ever Rocky Mountain PuppetPalooza, which was a puppet festival. What was your
yep.
goal in creating PuppetPalooza?
So as I was doing the Puppet Slam, and the Puppet Slam is a whole thing, and it's been amazing, and I love it. But a lot of times people would say, "Well, is it for kids?" And I didn't want it to be for kids because I think that the Puppet Slams should be for everybody, and that includes doing the raunchy things, doing the kind of weird stuff. So I was getting a lot of interest to have some kind of like kids puppetry festival. And that, based on my research, I hadn't seen anything in Colorado of that nature that was like specifically puppet focused. So that really was the catalyst, is because so many people would come to the slam or would email me about the slam and ask if their like 7-year-olds can come. And I'm like, well, I don't know if they're okay coming. So that was why, and it was super, super fun last year. It was definitely a pilot year for sure, but it was super successful for being its very first year, and for me having like no idea what I was doing. It was great. But yeah, so really just trying to reach out into the family and like the children's communities in Colorado and bringing puppetry in there, because I love puppetry for kids, but my heart really is more puppetry for all audiences, especially adults. However, there's a big part of the world who thinks puppetry is just for children, and so I definitely also wanted to reach out to that group as well.
What sort of events were at PuppetPalooza?
So it was a one-day thing. It was outside in the summer because I wanted it to have like a sort of like an outdoor festival kind of vibe. So it was pretty short for the first year. I think it was like from 10 to 3 on like a Saturday. And so all day long we had like a main stage. And so on the main stage we would have a combination of puppet performances, puppet workshops, like improv-y clown workshops, things that sort of fell into that world as well. But then in addition to the main stage performances, there were 2 gigantic like make your own puppet booths. And so kids and adults could come, and we had tons of supplies for them, and everything was free. We just asked people to give donation if they could, but otherwise they were welcome to just make whatever they wanted to. And then we had a bunch of other tents and vendors. So we had like a silent auction. We had a huge tent of puppets from personal collections of people I know in Colorado. So I had probably like 10 of my puppets and, 10 of other people's puppets that people could play with or see or take pictures of. And then just different vendors. We had like a face painter. We had like the public libraries come over. A couple other like artists were selling things. So there's just kind of like a big smorgasbord of like performance and art and knowledge and education, but all centered around puppetry.
That's incredible, and I like that you said it was well received and everybody had a good time. What do you think was the biggest challenge in putting the festival together?
Oh man, it was really hot and there was not enough shade, and that was definitely a problem. The place that we did it at is super cool. It's called the Stanley Marketplace, and it's like this old airplane hangar that they've turned into like shops and restaurants and like fun kid things. So we were on the outside portion of it, and we brought a lot of tents, but there was no shade for like the main stage area. So that was a big problem. That was probably like the only complaint people had. And then the other thing is, of course, just getting the word out. Thankfully, the venue is like its walkability is incredible because people just walk and go there and hang out all the time. So we had a lot of walk-ins. They were really, really, really helpful in marketing for me. They got me an interview on the news, and like we did a little thing on the news. And so that's a really big part. And probably honestly the hardest part is that I did it mostly by myself. I had a lot of help and a lot of support, but at the end of the day, like I was the one doing a lot of the work. So it just was super exhausting, and I didn't really pay myself or anything for it. So in the future, we're going to relook at that. But I would say that that was probably the most challenging part.
Do you have plans to do a second one?
Yeah. I think, fingers crossed, it'll happen this year. I haven't quite gotten into planning it yet. But yeah, I really want to make it an annual thing. And I want to try to shoot small. So like last year was only, a couple hours, one day. And I kind of just want to do the same thing again this year, just to solidify what I already have before I start expanding it and making it bigger. But thankfully now, because of the guild, I think that I'm going to have a lot more support from guild members and people who want to help out and donate their time. So I think that I have a much stronger foundation to build it up this year.
Awesome, that's great. I can't wait to hear what the next one will be like.
Yeah, me too.
Well, you mentioned that you also have put together several puppet slams in the Rocky Mountain area.
Yeah.
What goes into putting together a puppet slam?
Oh man. Okay. So I had never been to a puppet slam until I went to the 2015 festival and saw the National Slam. And then after I got back from the 2017 festival, I was just like, these are so cool. Puppet slams are awesome. Like, it's just a wonderful place for people to experience puppetry. But I didn't really know a lot of puppeteers in Colorado. I knew like a handful of people, but I was mostly worried that I wouldn't have enough acts and I wouldn't have enough interest. So that year, I met a couple other puppeteers, and after I had like a decent handful of people who were interested, I was like, okay, I think that I can at least have like 5 acts and we'll make it a thing. So I produce it. I produce it myself. So it's not right now under a nonprofit or anything. So I just produce it through my company, Katy Williams Design. And yeah, it's a lot of work because I pretty much will do everything for it. So I market it and I produce it and I get everything together and I find the stage managers and the venues and everything like that. So the first year was definitely rocky just because I had no idea what I was doing. But I mean, like over 100 people came to the first one. So there was definitely like a hunger for it in Colorado. And Denver's a really cool city because we're sort of up and coming in the theater world in the sense that we're already pretty significant in the theater world, but we're starting to now get all the cool stuff like immersive theater and puppetry and things like this, all these ancillary art forms. So I saw this need that puppetry could fill, and I think a lot of theater practitioners don't think about puppetry as an option unless it's Little Shop or Avenue Q. And so part of the Puppet Slam is showing not only the public but also the theater world that puppetry is something that they can put into shows. And so that's been one of my really big goals, to make puppetry accessible in Colorado. And it's been great because every time I do a slam, I co-host it with another local theater company so that they get recognition, and also it shows that like puppetry and theater can go hand in hand. And so each, I do 3 of them a year, so each one is partnered with a different company just so to get even more involvement and engagement. But yeah, it's a lot of work. So if you want to start a slam, find a friend and get a lot of Red Bull. But it's great though, and it's been so rewarding, and people love it. And I mean, I've gotten work from the Puppet Slam, so that's great. Puppeteers are getting a lot of work because of it, so that is making me really happy. Yeah.
When you're booking a slam, what do you look for in the acts that you book for the show?
Ooh, okay. So each slam, so I have two answers to that. So the venue that I pick first, the whole point of the Rocky Mountain Puppet Slam is I want it to feel very accessible, and I don't want it to feel like stuffy or that you have to dress up and go to the theater. Like, I don't want any of that. So the Puppet Slams are always at a bar, and it's at some kind of bar that has a stage-ish type thing. So they will be set up in one of those. So that's how I found the venues. And then kind of in that same vein, anything was game, really, as far as the acts are concerned, as long as they were under 5 minutes. So basically the rules are it has to involve some kind of puppetry, whatever that means to you. It has to be 5 minutes or under, and it has to be able to be performed on whatever small stage we have. And that's pretty much it. And if I don't know the puppeteer, or if I've never seen their work before, I usually ask for like a little bit of an audition video or a script or something, just so not necessarily for the content, but more to get an idea of how the night will flow and what order to put things in, because I also will curate it. But yeah, it's mostly just expressions of puppetry, and it's okay if things are not finished, as long as they're rehearsed, but they don't have to be polished, because it's also a place where people can workshop and see reactions and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty open, honestly.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these events that you put on, like the Puppet Slam and PuppetPalooza, are free with a suggested donation. Does this play into what you're talking about, accessibility, and you want people to come see it?
Yes, definitely. I don't want anything to stop people from seeing the puppetry. So the way it works is I will typically be able to find a venue that won't charge me anything because they get all of the bar sales, so that it's kind of a mutually beneficial in that way. So yeah, I normally will ask like $5, and then we split that into 3 ways. So at the end of the night, all of the donations, 25% will go into this Puppet Slam fund in case I do need to pay for stuff. 10% goes to this organization called the Denver Actors Fund, which is this nonprofit in Colorado that helps actors and theater practitioners when they get sick or ill or injured and need help with medical expenses. And then the rest of it is split evenly amongst everybody who is involved. So amongst the acts and tech and stage managers and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just want to make it accessible. And the amazing thing is that most people will pay more than $5, which just is so awesome, especially because I found that if you don't pressure people into paying and you sort of do a pay what you can, pay what you think it deserves kind of philosophy, people tend to give you more. especially when they see how much work you put into it. So it's been great. I mean, it's not lucrative, but we don't like lose money on it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the reason I wanted to have you on the show today was to talk about the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild, which you are one of the founders of and the current president of. But before we kind of get into that, is there a history of puppetry in the Rocky Mountain area?
Good question. So not in my recent history, but there was we were called I think we were originally a long time ago called the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild, and then it was the Mile High Puppetry Guild by Mel Room, and so she was like rock star, and she did everything with that. And then it just sort of has died down, and a lot of the folks who were part of those puppetry guilds are in older generations, and so they just have not had as much interest from younger generations, and there just hasn't been a big interest in it. So there was a guild a while ago, and then the current president of that guild, his name is Corey Gilstrap. He's great. He, like a couple years ago, had talked to me about redoing the guild, and we both were like, yeah, that'd be great, but it just didn't happen. And then I kind of got the fire under my butt after I went to the last festival. And my friend Andrin, she and I sort of made it a goal to like talk to people and figure out how to start this guild. So yeah, there was a presence a while ago.
Well, and what are the steps of getting a puppetry guild off the ground or restarting one that has kind of been inactive? Because I know that sometimes in areas you'll have a puppet guild for, a decade or so, and then it'll kind of become inactive. So what are the steps of this process?
So the first thing is that I needed enough people who I thought would care and be interested. And it had been 2 years since I had started this Puppet Slam. And so I had like a decent amount of people who were puppeteers or who were interested or whatever. And so that was kind of step one, is I knew I needed like a member base. And I was getting really hung up on, because I didn't really understand what the guild was, to be totally honest, until I went to the last festival and got some more information. But I was really hung up on, well, if people have to pay money, what are they going to get out of it? Because for some reason, I was convinced that nobody was going to give the Puppet Guild money. And so I was really worried about that. And so that was a big piece. That was kind of a big piece of the puzzle of what do the members get out of this? And like, what are we going to provide to the public and the community? So that was kind of step one. And once I had like a solid group of people, it was like, okay, this seems like it's possible. And so then kind of the next big thing that happened is Andre Erickson, who is my friend from Colorado, we went out to the festival this last summer. And like I said, it was one of our goals to just sort of talk to people about guilds, to go to our regional meetings, stuff like that. So every time I ran into somebody who was on the board of a guild or who had started a guild or who was involved in that, I would just kind of pick their brain or like grab their contact info and started to come up with some more specific questions for people. And that was really great because it showed me that it was possible because other people had done it. So basically we went to our regional meeting and we figured out the rules, like what we like actually had to do, because we had no idea. We were like, I know we need a board probably, like what are we doing? So we figured out the rules. Dustin Curtis was super helpful, and so was Aretta, and they really helped me kind of point me in the right direction of, here's the guidelines, here's the rule book, like all that kind of stuff. And so then Andren and I got home and we had a meeting with Corey, who was the previous president, and Ed Glassman, who was also on the previous guild. And we just kind of decided to have a meeting, just to have the first meeting and see what happens. And thankfully it all worked out timing-wise, because the festival was in the summer and then the October slam was in the fall. So I got to use that slam as a catalyst to tell people about the meetings. Our very first meeting was in November. So I tried to plan it in a way that it would be really convenient and easy for people to get to this meeting. Because I think like a lot of this job has been talking to people and planning and like figuring out how to get people to come to your events. And so making it easy for people is really important. And so then we met up, we passed out flyers at the Puppet Slam. We told everybody about it, and nobody really knew what the guild was, like us included. We had our first meeting. We had probably maybe 10 people show up. But another really big thing that's very important to me is this whole accessibility. So every time we have a meeting, there's a Facebook event, and then the meeting goes live on Facebook, so that if somebody is not able to be there in person, they can still have a voice via the Facebook feed, and they can write comments and stuff, because I didn't care if people weren't there physically. I just wanted people there in general. So that has been a really big part, especially because we have some guild members who are actually out of state, and we have some who don't live in Denver. So since I live in Denver, this is a easy place to keep it central, but I want to make sure everybody can get there. So that was a really big piece of it. And then November, we had our first unofficial meeting. And then December, we had another meeting, and we had, we voted on a name, we voted on a logo, all that kind of stuff. And then in January, that meeting was going to be our first like official real meeting. So we can say we were, chartered in 2020 and that kind of thing. And that meeting had so many people, and it's crazy because like every one of these meetings, I meet probably like 2 to 5 new people who I've never met before. And I'm like, how have I not met you like at a Puppet Slam or something? So somehow word is getting out. I'm not totally sure how. But people keep showing up. And the other thing that I'm really big on for this guild is, even though it's called the Puppetry Guild, I really want to open our arms to anybody who feels that they are welcome into our world. So for example, I'm trying really hard to market towards like clowns and improv folks and like mask makers and costume designers and cosplay people, like really anybody who kind of falls into this creative performer category who doesn't really have a home. I want the guild to be a home for them, because the other part of the guild is that, and this kind of goes back to my thing in the very beginning of what do the members get. So we are offering workshops, and we're offering like field trips and seeing shows and stuff like that, but they're skills that not just puppeteers could want. So one of our workshops is going to be like a Warblow workshop, for example, and like cosplayers and costume designers and people like that will also benefit. So that's been a really big drive for me to grow the guild, because there's only so many puppeteers in Colorado. There's not a ton, but there's a lot of creative performers and creative makers and stuff. So, so that's been a big part of how it started. And also shout out to my roommate. Her name is Megan. She's amazing. And Megan has a lot of experience with like nonprofit worlds and boards and like rules and regulations. And so Megan has been incredibly helpful with helping me navigate all of that. And like, how many board members do we have? How many officers do we have? So she's been really, really beneficial, because I don't know a ton about that. So I think the reason that it has been so successful is I've been able to find these people who are super skilled in different ways. And now we're all together in one room, and it's just like awesome. And we're so powerful and wonderful because we all have these amazing skills, and we all are really passionate about making this succeed. So yeah, that was really long-winded, but there you go.
No, that's great. Do you know what is required of your organization to remain a chartered guild?
Yeah, I could tell you better if I had my notes in front of me, but essentially, there's a lot of rules, and some of them are more strict than others because the desire to have guilds and have a guild presence is a little bit higher than having every box checked, like via PFA kind of. So like I'm in the process right now getting every box checked, but some of the boxes are going to take longer than other boxes. So for example, you have to have like bylaws, you have to have some kind of like platform, so like a website or a Facebook page. Technically, I think your president and your VP, I think it's those two, have to be members of PFA. But those are the only 2 people who are required to be members of PFA. Everybody else, it's just optional. And then technically, the president is also required to be on the regional board of whatever their region is. And so that's kind of the checkbox that's going to happen when it's going to happen. And I've been in communications with PFA about this just because I wanted to do it right, and I wanted to make sure whatever boxes were essential to check were checked. And it's great because there is a whole thing online. I don't remember exactly where it is on the website, but there's a whole like handbook essentially of everything a guild needs to become a guild. So for somebody out there who's wanting to start a guild in their community, what I would do is I would write to PFA. I'd probably write to like Alex Griffin or Retta or somebody, and just say that you're interested, because then they can send you all the documentation you need. And yeah, it pretty much has everything you need, and then you just have to do the work to make it happen. But yeah.
Right. Well, I will put a link in the show notes for this episode to,
Yes.
the P of A and all that kind of information. Um,
Perfect.
Now you mentioned like the workshop, and I know you're going to have movie nights and stuff like that. Going forward, will the guild be involved in the puppetry events like the Puppet Slam and PuppetPalooza and stuff?
Yeah, great question. So the Puppet Slam right now is going to stay under me. And the only snag with the Puppet Slam right now is because it's under my company, which is not a nonprofit. I can't get any grants for it. So one thing I could do is I could go under P of A myself, and P of A would be my fiscal sponsor. Or like if the guild becomes a nonprofit, the Slam could go under the guild. So that's kind of like a future thing to look at, but the guild is very involved in the slams because they are going to have a presence at every slam where people can sign up and become members. So we're doing a slam on the 28th of February, and we have like a booth for the guild, and I think the guild is doing a little act about, like, what's a puppet guild, one of those kind of things. So they will definitely have a presence at all of the slams. But I don't think that the slam is going to be like hosted by the guild, but the guild will be there and be this lovely, wonderful, warm presence for everybody. And then with the Palooza, it's kind of the same thing. So the Palooza, I also really need to get it under some kind of nonprofit because it was very expensive to do as just me as a human. So we're not going to do that again. They will definitely have a presence there. And I'm thinking probably what will happen is if we do like the make your own puppet tent, like that would be like sponsored by the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild. So every time I do an event, I want the guild to have some kind of presence just because the more you get it out there, the more people will know about it. And the other thing that we want to do is the guild is also going to host its own events. So one of our goals is to have, we have a lot of goals, but one of them is to have all of these workshops and events and stuff open to the public. So for example, we do a Warbler workshop. It's free for guild members, but it's $15 for the public or whatever. So not only will that help us generate revenue, but it will also like open doors to people who haven't heard about us before. And then we're also going to hopefully host some of our own events. I don't really know what that's going to look like yet since we're in our little baby steps still, but we're going to be in like the Pride Parade, like things like that where we're getting our name out and letting people know that we are around. So, yeah.
Well, if a puppeteer lives in an area that has a puppetry guild, what are the benefits of them joining and getting involved?
It's a great question because I've never been in a guild before until now. If speaking from what I would say from the Rocky Mountain Guild is, one, you now have this lovely, wonderful family of people who all like this weird thing like you do, and it's great. And part of that is that we are there for each other. So another part of the guild is you're required to have a newsletter that goes out. And so in that newsletter, we can write stories about each other. We can promote each other's shows. We can go to each other's events, stuff like that. So you have this built-in support system, and it goes deeper than that too. So one of the things that the guild is offering is you could workshop your like current puppet art, for example. So like maybe we come to a meeting and you say, hey, I want to show you guys 5 minutes of this show I'm working on. And then we workshop it. We can give you feedback. We can give you ideas, stuff like that. So the guild is there for you as a puppeteer to use all of these resources of these, 30 to 50 people who now are in this guild. You now have access to all of their resources and their insight and their feedback. That's another thing we started to do where we have our contact sheet for the guild. And then next to everybody's contact information, it has skills that these people are proficient in. So if you are a builder, you can list some of the skills you're really good at, or if you have like your own company or whatever. So really just trying to cultivate that community and making sure people know that you have a place to practice your art and get better at it. So I think that that's probably the number one thing is opportunities to meet up with other puppeteers, pick their brains, opportunities to learn, especially through the workshops. People are really excited about that. And then opportunities to see puppetry and support puppetry in the community. So, for example, the show I just opened last weekend, the Scottsboro Boys, I did shadow puppetry for. And so I wrote to the artistic director and asked, hey, like, is there any way we can get a discount code for the guild? And he said yes. And so we have like a big like outing for the guild to go see the show, like stuff like that. So really just building that community and supporting each other is very important to me in the guild.
Well, that is awesome, and congratulations to you and the getting the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild off the ground and going. And I'm excited to see where it goes. As I wrap up here, I would love to ask, as someone who is seemingly working on a million projects at once, this is not about the guild. How do you not get burnt out on what you're working on?
Oh, Grant. Well, I'm currently sick because I got burnt out. No, it's that's a really good question. I think that because I love it so much, it enriches my soul in a way that just working a 9 to 5 or just having like 4 part-time jobs would do or wouldn't do. So I think that there's something where I've always been a creator, and if I'm not making art or doing art or just like creating, I go insane. And so I naturally have this desire to create, and I think that that feeds really well into what I do. But I mean, not going to lie to you, the last couple of years have been insane because not only have I been an artist and been a designer in the theater world, but now I've also become a producer, and I've become, which is great, but I've become sort of this like point person in the Denver theater community where somebody says puppets, and then they usually, my name will follow that, or one of my colleagues' names will follow that. And so I'm getting a lot of influx of people who are just kind of starting out with puppetry or have just learned about it, and then they get forwarded my information. And it's really hard to give 100% to every single one of those people who emailed me, but I try my hardest because I want everybody to feel welcome and to feel like they are a part of this community and that I can help them in any way possible. So I have a really hard time relaxing because it's really hard for me. So I'm forcing myself to relax more this year and not feel guilty. I have this thing I call relaxation guilt, which I feel like most of us who are working theater artists or artists in general probably have felt. But I will just get home, and if I relax, I just like feel terrible. But I'll go to my day job, and then I will work on my other jobs for a couple hours, and then by the time I'm done with that, it's like 11 at night. And then I haven't got to unwind at all. So then I unwind till like 1 a.m. and then the whole cycle starts over. So I think the answer is being kinder to myself, which I'm really trying to do this year and I've been struggling with. So I'm trying to be kinder to myself. I am leaning on my friends and family and support more than I thought I was allowed to. I think that being this like force in the community, I feel like I have to do it all myself, and I'm not allowed to ask for help. And that shows weakness or like, all these silly things we say to ourselves inside of our brains. But really none of that is true. And the people who are around you are going to help you. And if they love you, they're going to be there for you to help you get to this place that you want to be. So I'm really finding the people in my life who are there for me and who I can talk to at 1 a.m. when I'm having a freak out, or who can come over and like help me cut out pieces of paper for the next show. So I'm really trying to embrace this wonderful community I have around me and understand that it's physically impossible for me to do it all myself. And I keep getting sick, and that's why this is happening. So I think that is a big part of it, of being kind to yourself and being kind to others and graciously allowing their help when you need it. I think it's really big.
Awesome. Well, Katy, if people would like to connect with you or the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild online, where can they go?
Good question. So I have my own website. It's katywilliamsdesign.com, and Katy is Katy. So you can go to my website. My email is katy@katywilliamsdesign.com. Like I just said, I am happy to get your email. I am more than willing to talk to you about anything you want to chat with about. I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram under the same handle, so keeping it all the same, which is always good. So you can reach me on any of those platforms. And then for the Guild right now has a Facebook page, and it's probably just going to stay a Facebook page for now because we don't really need a website. And so if you look for Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild on Facebook, you will find it. Or if you're friends with me, you can kind of find it through there. But those are the best places to reach out. And then, of course, if anybody happens to ever be in Colorado and there's a puppet slam going on, you are more than welcome. I will welcome you with open arms. Even if you're passing through and you ever want to be in a puppet slam, please let me know. One of my friends I met at the festival last summer from DC, Matt McGee, he's actually going to be in our puppet slam in February, which is amazing. So I really want to have some of my out of town friends come in, and because I feel like I'm in this little world of T of A and getting to experience the magic of the festival and getting to have all these wonderful puppet friends. And if you haven't been in that world, I think it's kind of hard to like describe that to people. So the more that I can bring my puppet friends who are not from Colorado in and like show the Colorado community like how amazing we are, the better. So yeah, contact us on all the social medias.
Awesome. Well, Katy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for offering to talk to me. This was great.
Many thanks to Katy Williams for being on the show. For links to Katy's website, the Rocky Mountain Puppetry Guild, and some of the other things we talked about, check out the show notes for this episode. That's episode number 40 over at underthepuppet.com. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Under the Puppet. If you have any feedback, you can send it via email to underthepuppet@gmail.com, or you can connect with the show on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching for Under the Puppet. Thank you so much for listening. This episode of Under the Puppet featured music by Dan Ring and was edited by Steven Staver. Under the Puppet is a production of Saturday Morning Media and made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly pledge for as little as $1 a month. Patrons get new episodes before they are released, behind-the-scenes information, and exclusive bonus episodes. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly pledge today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. Under the Puppet is copyright 2020 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Bachogo executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com. The new Under the Puppet app is here for iOS and Android, and it is absolutely free. Download it today to get all the episodes of Under the Puppet in one place. Plus, you'll hear new episodes before their release, get exclusive bonus episodes, and more. Just search for Under the Puppet in the Apple App Store for iOS or on Google Play. You can also visit SaturdayMorningMedia.com/apps for direct links. The free Under the Puppet app for iOS and Android. Download it today.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.